You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I hope wherever you are in the world and whatever you're doing, you are doing very, very well. You're about to listen to a conversation with one of the genuine legends of the Australian metal scene. Not only is he in an excellent band called Claim the Throne, who do have a new album out for 2018 called On Desolate Plains, and that was a primary, or the principal reason, if you like, for us to actually have a discussion during this episode here. But I do dive into what he also does, which is Soundworks Touring. So if it wasn't for Dicey and his colleagues at Soundworks Touring, there's a chance, dear Australian listener, that you wouldn't be seeing so many of the wonderful bands that you've enjoyed over the past. I think he's been going for about 15 years now. Anyway, let's cut to the chat with Dicey and hear all about it. Here we go. You've been pretty busy of late, though, haven't you? I mean, I can't blame you, mate, given that you're running Soundworks and you've also got this incredible album through your band Claim of Throne that's just been released.
Yes, mate, as always, I've got a million things on the go. I'm just sort of trying to immerse myself in music, whether it's playing, working, listening. I'd eat and drink if I could. But it's good to be busy, you know. Like I just kind of get bored sitting around doing nothing, and music's my life. So I'm sort of fortunate I can. Although I've worked hard for it, but yeah,
you have indeed. Yeah, you are a case study in working hard. Yeah.
Yeah, so I can just get by making a living out of it, and I can get on the fun side and still play as well.
Yeah. Mate, just a couple of things before we kick off. Yes, I definitely write for Metal Obsession, but I also host a podcast series and a radio show on 4ZZZ over here in Brisbane. So are you cool if I air our interview as a part of the radio show and podcast series as well as write a feature for Metal Obsession? Oh,
absolutely, mate. Yeah, the more exposure we get, the better. So yeah, I'm all for that for sure.
Excellent. Mate, I'm going to kick things off and I'm going to ask you a question that you weren't anticipating. Now, I've just found out today that somebody has been using my my name online as an alias to solicit copies of records and also interviews from bands. It's quite incredible. And it's quite extensive, it turns out. Have you ever had anything like that happen to you?
No, not like that. No, quite often, well, not quite often, but every now and then you tend to hear funny rumours about yourself, or I guess also tours that Soundworks are doing. Like, well, that's interesting. That's the first I've heard about that.
Yeah, I bet you get a lot of that. Yeah.
But no, I've never had. I don't know what do you call that? Some kind of identity theft or something. I don't know, but I've never had that. But yeah, just the odd rumour here and there that you hear about yourself or your band or Soundworks, which I always find amusing. It never kind of really annoys me, but yeah, that's kind of pretty light on though. It's not having what I guess is happening to you. That seems a bit kind
of
crazy.
Bizarre. I've literally found out about it in the last half an hour. That's the reason I bring it up, because it's fresh and it doesn't even bug me that much, to be honest with you, because I think the bands and the agents and the promoters out there are shrewd enough and savvy enough to reach out to me first. And I've actually had some pretty serious bands like Stefan from Adagio reach out to me and go, "Hey man, you've been reaching out to me for an interview. Let's do it." And I'm like going, "Okay, that's cool. We'll do the interview, but it wasn't me. And I know you're in a wonderful band and you're a wonderful guitarist, so I've got no problem with this." But it's been going on, I think, for about 12 months now, and I've only just found out about it now. So that's the reason I bring it up. Yeah, mate. And to be frank, I'm a nobody, so I don't know what anybody thinks gaining any sort of currency out of using my name's going to give to them. But what can I say?
I mean, there's some strange fans out there, I guess. I mean, the bands we deal with, they're still relatively well known and quite high level. We don't do any sort of superstars or anything, but a lot of fans try and do the best to sneak into a VIP or sneak into a show or sneak backstage, or they're always trying to do something to get an autograph or a picture or whatever. So I mean, I don't know if it's someone's sneaky way of trying to interview the bands they like or something. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's
bizarre. You never know.
It's funny. I mean, I've interviewed over 200 artists and musicians at this point. Sata from Satyricon, the guys in Venom Inc., Peter Criss from Kiss, some pretty serious names, right? And they're all just normal people, right? There's no advantage to wanting to pretend you're being somebody else and actually trying to talk to these people, because at the end of the day, I'm really just talking to them about sometimes what their daily routine is. Like me, that's about dropping my 2 kids off at kindy and then just working out what I'm going to do, A, for my professional commitments, and B, for my music. You know what I mean? Where can you take it by pretending to be somebody else? I'll stop talking about it in a sec, but it's an interesting situation.
No. Yeah. No, I understand. I mean, I guess I've been working so long in the music industry that if I meet a semi-famous person or a famous person, I do a lot of extra driving gigs, and I've driven some different names around, like Ace Frehley, and worked with Justin Bieber show and all this crazy stuff, and even
Jeez. Yep.
but like you say, they're just people, man, and I guess I'm a bit numb to it because I really just, okay, they're ageless people, they're just everyday people. They're just,
sure.
A few more people know them than me. So, but your average fan, it doesn't sound like they're heroes of God's icons. So I can kind of see why they get a little bit more excited, or sometimes a whole lot more excited than myself or you do, because we're working in the industry and we get it, whereas your average fan doesn't quite get that.
Great perspective, mate. So, look, let's talk about your excellent band, Claim the Throne. Mate, you've been going since 2004, which is a remarkable achievement, all things considered, given you're an Australian metal band and a band from Perth, no less. So, I've only just been given your album, Thank You. You sent it to me, and I've listened to it a couple of times since that you've sent it over, but it was released last year. So, I do need to ask, is it the definitive Claim to Throne album, and what can you share with listeners about it?
Oh, well, I think it's definitely our strongest now to date, for sure. And I think, the band's been around for 14 years now this year. I've been with them for about 7 or 8. And I think the lineup we've had now has been the most stable it's been. And, we're all a little bit older now, and some of us might be a little bit more mature. I don't know, probably not. But I think now this is the second full album we've written together. I guess now we know each other's influences well and each other's styles, and I guess it's just sort of gelled a bit better this time around. So I think, and also being a bit more serious on this one too, writing-wise. I mean, the last one, Fortune Flame, we were a bit more serious too. I think this one we were really trying to push harder, push ourselves, and we want to aim higher with tours and stuff we want to do. So, we're aiming to impress. I mean, I guess ourselves, but also fans and other people, important people in the industry who hopefully might hear it and like it and maybe offer us a sick tour somewhere.
Yeah.
But I think, today it's definitely our strongest album today, for sure. Fortune Flame was a big leap, I thought, from Triumph and beyond, and I think this one's another big leap in every aspect, from the songwriting to the playing to the recording, and just different things we've learnt over the years. And man, we're super happy with it.
I think you deserve a lot of credit for the video released. Of course, the song I can't recall right now, but the video is of very high professional quality out there, and it certainly competes with some of the top tier, Black and Death and alternative metal bands that have released things over the last couple of years, such as Satyricon and the like, mate. So you're to be congratulated for actually putting in the effort for a video, because a lot of bands seem to do. I'm not ratting on bands that do lyric videos. I understand there is a place for them, but it's always nice to see a band actually do a concept video like what you guys have done.
Yeah, sure. Is that the one with Cabba walking through the Australian bushland and?
No, it was the one actually with the female. Sorry, she's probably a member of the band. I should apologise, but you've got the female lead vocal there as well on the keyboards.
Oh, on the studio. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, sure. That's the where we're playing. Yep. No, we've got a couple of clips, which we did pretty much at the same time, and we did spend a bit of money on. We got a couple of good friends here who have their own video imaging company, and I think they did the first one years ago, Set Sail Now, but they've obviously developed a bit more over the years, got more equipment and better equipment, and kept up to date with technology. So they put together a budget for us. We scrapped together the money. It's cost us a bit, but yeah, we wanted the film clips to match the music as well. We put that much into the music. We thought, well, let's try it, and we'll spend a bit of money on the clips. And I'm glad that I'll be your second person to interview me who said that and brought up quite early. So I'm glad it's sort of people that are seeing that. Because we do want to step it up a notch on many levels.
Well, I think it helps because, getting into being, raising awareness of your band is very hard these days, cutting through all the bullshit and actually getting people across the globe to pay attention to what it is you're doing. Because what you're doing is worth listening to, but videos I think are very important because I tend to find a lot of, is it Generation Z? The lot that were born sort of post-1994, 1995, they're all about that type of graphic content. And that's the way in which, my perception is at least anyway, that you grab their attention. And, of course, they're the ones with the so-called disposable income to spend on merch and going to gigs and all that sort of stuff, certainly a lot more than us approaching middle age, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, I'm well past that. So. No, it's not true. Well, age-wise, not mind-wise.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, look,
likewise.
I mean, that's the thing, and I understand. I mean, I do take care of all the promo and publicity and marketing for Soundworks, and I understand that people's attention spans nowadays are very, very short. Like in a YouTube video, I mean, a lot of people skip after 30 seconds. If you haven't grabbed their attention, they'll skip to the next thing. So yeah, we wanted to make sure it was very visually grabbing to try and keep the the people watching YouTube to keep their attention. Hopefully, listen to the end, and okay, well, if they like that song, hopefully they'll check out the album. And I mean, all the songs are on YouTube to listen to, and if people want to, and that was the whole idea, and it seems to be working. So that's good to hear.
And look, the band has certainly achieved some incredible milestones, such as performing with Arch Enemy, I should say, Cradle of Filth and Suffocation, and I believe you're the first Australian band to feature on 7,000, or is it 70,000 tonnes of metal, whatever it is, the big floating cruise of metal that happens over there. I think it's in Florida, was it, that you're on?
That's correct, yep, Lee's from Florida, yep.
So what has been the highlight for you personally, with so many wonderful episodes to choose from throughout the band's career?
That's a pretty good question. Luckily, I've actually got to think about that, so we've done quite a few good things. I mean, definitely being the first band first Australian metal band on 7,000 tonnes of metal was definitely a highlight. I mean, we were actually all going anyway, and we were touring the US because we were all going to the 70,000 tonnes. We decided, well, let's do a tour, and we did off our own back DIY, and we did approach the promoter from 70,000 tonnes, and 4 days out, he gave us a call. You'll play, guys, want to play? We're like,
4 days out.
You don't have to pay us. We've already got tickets and we've already bought bunks and stuff. So yeah, cool. We'd love to. So that was definitely a highlight. Touring with Winter Sun just after the album release.
Great band, yeah.
In Australia and in Japan. I mean, we've been to Japan 3 times now, and the tour we did, I think in 2000. I have to think now. 2013 maybe. Oh my God, it's been a while now. We did 16 dates with Hailstorm in the UK. That was really awesome. It was kind of the first time we'd been on a proper tour bus, and just doing show every night of the week for 15 or 16 nights, and so that was a great experience, and that was definitely a highlight. After touring with the guys here in Australia, and we all clicked, and they just invited us to be part of their tour. We're like, oh shit, yeah, cool, okay, if you guys want us, we're not going to say no. So
for sure,
definitely those. And we've been fortunate enough to play some big festivals in Asia, such as Hamasonic Fest in Indonesia, and with Fanatic Fest in Bali, and whatnot. So they're definitely those. But then again, it's always, anything we've done is always a great time. If it's an Australian tour like we're about to do, or fortunate enough to get overseas and do some bigger things, it's what I joined a band for.
Well, look, I think the point there about you achieving, that's a great achievement, by the way, and it's an achievement that you should be congratulated and noted for, getting on such a prestigious event like the 70,000 or 7,000 tonnes of metal. God, I should look it up which one it is, but either way, I think the listeners will know what we're talking about. You're part of this great resurgence, if I could put it that way, of Australian metal. So I've said it before and I'll say it here. Based on what I've listened to thus far through On Desolate Plains, it's yet another stellar Australian metal album. It more than competes with what's happening in the rest of the globe. It's better than most of what's being released in the rest of the globe. So as a 25-year fan of actively searching for Australian metal, I feel as though the past 2 years we're achieving something resembling a high watermark or a high tide. Now, being a 25-year veteran, of course, I was around in the 90s, as I'm sure you were, mate, when you go to shows and bands were either mimicking offshore acts such as Morbid Angel, or they were frankly just plain shit. Now, I'm going to call it out. The attitude of the general metal community in the country in general since that time has improved significantly a lot as well, and the bogan factor is just not as prevalent as what it used to be. I think you know what I'm talking about, mate. Women feel comfortable going to shows now. Yeah,
I think it's definitely changed a lot, and you can definitely put that to the internet and just just having access to. I mean, as a listener, you have access to so much, but as a band, you've got access to It's so much easier to contact booking agents and managers and record labels, and it's so much easier to learn stuff because now you can just Google, how do I put on a gig, or how do I print a shirt? You just Google it, and Google, not everything you read on Google's quite right, of course, but it's easy to find information. So I think that's definitely helped in the standard of what bands are doing nowadays, and also because there's so much out there, there's a lot more competition. So you've got to be on your game to try and impress everyone else. Whereas back in the 90s and late 80s, it was just tape trading, which is your local scene. Unless you read Metal Hammer or Hot Metal, you didn't really know what was going on in the rest of the world. So There's certainly a lot more bands nowadays. Back when I was first getting into local scenes and whatnot, it's just there's so much more going on. But yeah, I think to stand out now, you've really got to be really good, and not be an imitator, because people just sort of call it out straight away. And
so what do you put the general improvement in the scene overall down to? So there's Claim the Throne, you guys, of course, Aversion's Crown, For All Eternity, Thy Art Is Murdered. They're just a few. Okay, I could honestly keep them going on. Hybrid Nightmares. I remember as a kid, mate, it was hard. It was real hard to go to gigs, and I did try, man. I was into Cryogenic back in the day, Mortality. They were good bands, by the way. But after that, it seemed like there was a big drop-off. At the moment, do you think it is down to the internet and the fact that savvy people who might not have had the inclination to get into metal in years gone by, nowadays, because of the internet, they're able to just sort of plug in and get on board? Is that the reason, do you think?
I think, and it's just, internet also has, there's a lot of community groups, and there's, New South Wales Metal Guide and WA Metal Guide or Perth Metal Space, or there's so many groups that you can click onto and be part of something. And I think too, with bands, the technology available to bands, you can record in your own bedroom now, and the quality of just your own demos are better than the quality of 80s metal albums. And there's a lot of tricks you can use now, and it's just a whole lot easier to do a whole bunch more things now. When I first started playing in '95, trying to get a gig, I didn't know how to get a gig. We just sort of punished some local bands, Allegiance being one of them. You would have heard of them.
Of course, mate. I should have mentioned them when I mentioned Cryogenic earlier. They were a phenomenal band. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I learned a whole bunch off Dave Harrison, the bass player. But we just went to a gig and just harassed them basically until they gave us a gig. But now you can just message someone on Facebook and go, hey, look, I want to put a show together, or can I get a show with you guys? It's just so much easier to contact people and so much easier to get advice, and it's research it, and I think it's just a lot more out there for people to access than there was back in the 90s. It really was just get in someone's face or try and find a info on an Express or a magazine or something, so it's just there's a lot more out there for people to be able to grab and learn from, which is great. It's great, it's great that the Aussie metal scene is really strong. There's a lot of bands going overseas now and doing great things, whether it is like The Art Is Murder or Parkway Drive, Neighbour Luke Scar.
Parkway, yeah.
Aversion's Crown. There's even Cursed Earth, bands like that. There's plenty of them, and it's fantastic to see. And Disentomb. King Parrot. You keep going.
So many.
There's a time
so many. Yeah.
20 years ago, you'd say Allegiance, and you'd be like, oh, okay, Mortal Sin, Sadistic Execution, as crazy as they
that's
were.
Exactly my point. Yeah, there was like 5 bands you could name check, and probably only 2 of them an international mate of yours, if you had like a pen pal thing going on with people offshore, would actually be aware of.
Exactly.
I remember that song by Allegiance. I think it was Hate Frenzy. Was that off Destitution? Jesus, I must have worn that one out. God, that was a classic album, that one.
Absolutely.
So, mate, let's talk about your musicianship. You're an excellent guitarist. So, mate, what got you into playing, and also not just playing, because this is what a lot of people do. They tend to sit around their bedrooms or living rooms or going over to mates' places and jamming in garages. What got you actually performing?
Well, as crazy as it might sound, I grew up in the 80s when glam metal was huge, so CC DeVille from Poison really kind of sparked my interest.
Nice. Love it.
Also, Vernon Reid from Living Colour, like the first vinyl I ever bought was Living Colours of Vivid.
You're a man after my own heart right there. That was my number one album last year, actually, was Shade by Living Colour. I'm a bass player, so Living Colour are one of my
go-to. Oh, well, there you go, yeah. So when I first saw Cult of Personality, that solo just blew my mind. And then, I heard of Joe Satriani, and then from there it was, all the thrash metal bands, and of course, Kirk Hammett and Dave Mustaine and all that kind of stuff. So that got me into wanting to play guitar. I didn't start playing guitar until I was 16, so it wasn't until about 1989, after many years of listening to it. And then, from there, just once I finished high school, it was like, well, surely there's going to be a local scene, and just discovering local bands like Allegiance and Infected and Downer, and just going, all right, cool, there's a local scene. Well, I should be able to form a band and start cranking it. So, that was pretty much it. CC DeVille, you got that to thank for.
Look, we've got that in common. That was the first ever so-called heavy metal tape I ever bought. Was Open Up and Say R actually, and in no small part to me wanting to play actual real guitar. Forget about air guitar, but real guitar along to his excellent licks. And it wasn't until I bought the album prior to that one, Look What the Cat Dragged In.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, and Talk Dirty to Me, and that was one of the first songs that I learnt on guitar. So that was, I think you both of us have CC DeVille to thank for getting us a bit of a start.
Yeah, thanks, thanks, CC.
Bit of a lesson in that. I hear he's a champion of a guy as well. I was talking to Phil Campbell, of course, the guitarist from Motorhead, and we're talking about amplifiers, and it turns out he was an endorsee of Galley & Kruger. And CC was fascinated with the Galley & Kruger guitar combo that he was using through the 80s. So there's another story I heard about CC, and I did ask Phil what sort of a guy he was. He said, no, excellent bloke, fantastic guy. So it's nice to hear from another muso as well as us as a fan. We can appreciate his music, but it turns out he's not a bad guy either.
That's always nice to hear.
So let's change track, mate. We did start off talking about, we talked about a rather bizarre situation that I was facing, but we talked a bit about Soundworks as well. Mate, you are the man behind the agency, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you started it?
Yes, myself and Brad Wesson, who was in the first. We played together in the first band together years ago when I finished high school. We were high school buddies, and then we were in a band called Choke. So it all stemmed from there. But yeah, so with Brad, back in 2005. Prior to that, we bought Soundworks rehearsal studios, and we started bringing some Aussie bands from over east to Perth because no one was doing it. So we brought over like Bremlin and Psychroptic and Days End and bands like that, just hanging out, making friends. And yeah, but our first international show was Destroyer 666 in Perth, I think in 2004. Actually, I've got a poster right behind me. 2004. And then in 2005, we toured Hate Eternal. I went
to that one. Yeah.
Yep, with Harvest Psychroptic and Dave Haley, and that went well, and they just happened to be managed by Niall at the time, and so we got the Niall tour, and then after Hate Eternal, Eric Rutan recorded Cannibal Corpse, gave us some props. Alex Webster got in touch, and we toured Cannibal, and it all just went from there. So, actually, technically, I'm not an owner of Soundworks anymore. I actually left as an owner-director at the end of the last financial year. We didn't really emphasise that, but I'm still with the company. I said the guys, look, I don't want to be an owner anymore, but I'm happy to still tour manage and do publicity. That's kind of the side of things I like. So I'm still much affiliated with it. So you would have seen Soundworks Direct, which is now a combination of Soundworks Touring and Direct Touring. Sort of formed a partnership for certain tours, but I'm still heavily involved for sure. On a daily basis. So really, not much has changed other than I'm not an owner. I'm just, I guess, effectively an employee now. But yeah, still definitely involved. But yeah, it's before 2005. Where are we? 2018. 13 years now. I guess I've sold international touring, so it's been a while.
Look, I've been to many of the shows that you've brought out, and they've always had great production. The bands they've always certainly seemed to me as a fan when I'm watching them from the stage to be focused. And that usually, believe me, I've seen many, I remember seeing Skin Lab back in year 2000, man, going way back now. And I think they had a few issues with whoever bought them out, and they were venting about it from stage or talking about some shit from stage. I don't know what was going on there, but, I'm drawing upon my, what year is it now? 18-year-old memory for that. But I guess my point being is, mate, a lot of the shows that I've seen, they seem to be well prepared and the bands are happy to play, mate. So you've done a bloody good job so far.
Well, you know what? What my dad used to tell me was, what was it? Oh, God. Prior preparation prevents piss poor performance. So
that's so true, mate. That's right
as
there,
long
yeah.
As you supply what the bands need to run a show and you put that there, or if that's unavailable, you get a suitable alternative. As long as they got what they need to put on a show and it's all there, they've got no reason to be angry or upset. So it's not rocket science. Sometimes things are a bit hard to find or whatever, but it kind of, you've always got your dodgy promoters or your people who don't really know what they're doing. And to be honest, we didn't really know what we were doing for the first 2 or 3 tours, but we got there and we learned a few things, of course, and you never stop learning. But yeah, I know, as long as you're organised and I mean, obviously things can go wrong in the day, and we've had disasters before, but then people work together and you make do with what you've got.
Yeah, for sure.
And you just make the show happen. It's always going to happen, and then but there's no point people getting angry, upset, or screaming and yelling. That doesn't solve anything.
No,
So, but
right.
yeah, I mean, we've had a couple of disasters, but the show's always gone ahead, and every band we've worked with has always left with a smile on their face, and we generally get repeat business. So, we must be doing something right.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's it. Look, I've just stepped out of my career as an account executive at Telstra after 11 years. And I've been the bearer of bad news on many occasions, I can tell you. And that's often to boards of directors, business owners and the like. And I've always found that as long as you shoot straight, you direct, and you tell them exactly what's happened, but you also come to them with a solution about what you're trying to do to make things right, nobody throws their toys out of the cot, as we like to say. That's always been my experience.
Yeah, you've got to be up front. You've got to be up front, and quite often the other band will say, look, we want a certain head down here to run the shows. Go, hey, look, sorry, but Australia, we don't have those particular brands here, or, maybe Melbourne doesn't have them, or Perth. Say, look, but we've got alternatives. What's your alternative? Or we might ship it over from Melbourne or whatever, but as long as you're up front and they don't get a surprise when they rock up the show, and instead of having their, 4 PV heads and 4 PV cabinets, they don't rock up and see 2 Fender combos. They're generally happy.
Yeah. What's been the biggest challenge that you've faced in your time at Soundworks that you feel comfortable sharing?
Sorry, what was that?
What's been your biggest challenge, or what's something that you faced and you thought, oh shit, how are we going to make this one work? Something that you feel comfortable sharing, because I mean, it's probably the very few time that I think one of the few times that I think I'm going to get the opportunity to talk to somebody in a position that you've been in, and certainly from a listener's perspective. My next question is going to be a humdinger, actually, so it'll lead nicely into this one.
Well, I think generally speaking, we've 90% of our tours have been metal tours, and of nothing of massive nature. Like we haven't toured a Slipknot or a Metallica or anything like that. Until we've got tours. We've done Carcass and Cannibal Corpse, and they're still big shows, 1,200. On the metal side of things, nothing that really pops out, but I know we've also toured 2 cellos, which is completely different. 2 guys and 2 cellos. And those shows, especially the last two, were huge. Took in 3,000 people, sold out Sydney Opera House, and that level comes with a whole lot more
stress,
production. Oh yeah, to a point. I mean, production. A little bit out of our comfort zone, but. I mean, I've got to give full credit to Brad for that, because he pulled all that together along with another company we worked with and their crew. And for me personally, I didn't have to worry too much about that much. I actually was merchandise for that tour, so I had the easy job. But even that was had its own challenges with the amount of merch we had to print and the different types and stuff I hadn't had to work on before. But that was definitely probably the biggest challenge in terms of being probably out of our comfort zone. But, at the end of it, pulled it off and it went perfectly. Most of the shows sold out. The only hiccup we had was potentially in Brisbane, where it was an outdoor show and it rained up until an hour before doors, and it cleared up. And but, we were prepared for that. We had insurance in case it did rain. So if a disaster did happen, we were covered. We had to pay for it, but yeah, I'd say that one. As far as the metal stuff, we had the worst day of my Australian tour managing life with Iced Earth in Melbourne, where our flight got delayed and we got to the airport. The van booking was stuffed up, so we're an hour late, and then it was Grand Prix day, so traffic was terrible. Schaefer had done his back in, so we had to get a masseuse. Instead of getting to the venue at 2 p.m, we got there at 5 p.m, so we're 3 hours behind. 3 out of the 4 Marshall amps blew up. The support band, I think Elm Street, the guy literally dislocated his knee on stage, could only do 3 songs. So it was just one thing after another. Stu Block's voice blew out halfway through the set. And it was the last show, and it was just like, I don't think I'd slept from the night before because we had such a busy schedule.
I bet.
So that was a nightmare. It was literally just one thing after another, and I was literally ready just to almost run away and not come back.
I can imagine. Yeah, it just seems like one thing after another. Yeah, well, I've certainly experienced days like that when I've been at Telstra as well, where your day starts early and it finishes really late. But I mean, if you're talking about not having had sleep from the night before, mate, was John? I mean, I've never interviewed him. I've done a review of their album, of course, their most recent one. It's not a bad album at all, mate. But I've certainly read that he can be a bit Dave Mustaine-like, mate. Was that your experience? If you feel comfortable sharing it.
Oh, look, John definitely cracks a hard whip. I mean, he was totally fine with me. Again, he had no reason to be upset with me about anything. He cracked the whip at his crew, but only because his crew were not, he was just keeping them in tow. But no, I found him fine.
Yep.
When he was definitely at the venue, he definitely had his serious face on. But outside of that, at the airport or back at the hotel, quite a funny dude. Pretty fun nature. But no, we had no major issues. And even on that day, I mean, he did lose his shit hard, but he wasn't losing it at anyone in particular. It was
he's just trying to get things done. Yeah,
and he was just frustrated like the rest of us were. So, but they still played the show, and Stu apologised for his voice, and even got the crowd to sing along, and in parts where he couldn't do it. And
they make for more memorable shows, though. Those moments.
Yeah, exactly. And Schaefer made do with his one amp in the end, and in the end, Melbourne got a unique show in a way. Probably not ideal, but the crowd were great, and they understood, and there's not much more you can do. But in the end, the show happened, as stressful as it was, and I was glad that day was over, I can assure you.
I can imagine. Yeah, no, I can imagine, mate. Yeah. Look, I've had a few chats to Ralph Santola over the years, and the guitarist from Deeside Obituary.
Oh, I know Ralph. He's a good friend of mine. Yep.
You know him? Yeah, and I've had to ask him. I said, "What was it like working with him on the Glorious Bird?" And he said, "Look, apart from being a tremendous guitarist, he's a good guy. So his reputation might precede him, but it isn't necessarily the copy that is out there doesn't necessarily reflect the nature of the man."
No. And when you see someone like, John twisting off at the venue, and I guess if you're a venue staff, you probably think, God, who's this asshole? But, he was just venting. Everyone was angry, and I can tell no one was more stressed than me. So, but the show must go on.
It must go on. And again, I said I had a humdinger of a question to ask you, and when we talk about the show must go on, here we go. Life is noise. Dave Cutbush. Now, I had an interaction, and I must say a very pleasant one, with Dave a few days before the sexual misconduct allegations were raised against him. So I'm certainly not asking for comment about Dave, but does the likely failure, and I say likely failure because I just can't see where else the business can go, of a rather notable touring agency, what does that mean to Soundworks?
Well, I guess, for that style of music of what they did, there's obviously a hole there as far as a promoter goes. So these bands and booking agents and managers are going to be, I guess, I mean, I don't know really. Going to assume they're going to be looking for new partners. I don't really know too much of the Life is Noise setup. I guess there's another guy involved, I think, but obviously he's going to have a hard time trying to piece things back together if he is going to be able to. I don't know. Yeah. But obviously these bands and booking agents are going to be looking for new partners. So. They could quite possibly come to us because obviously it's still heavy music. Well, when I say us, I should say Soundworks. They may go elsewhere. Obviously, there's there's plenty of other promoters in the country. But they're going to be looking for someone reputable who's got a good name and does a good job. So, no, certainly can't rule out that they're not going to come to Soundworks. Absolutely.
I hope they do, mate. I mean, Wolves in the Throne Room, those Cascadian Metal Titans, mate, they're one of my favourite bands, certainly blackish metal bands, and Sleep are tremendous. When they announced that they were cancelling their tours, which I can completely understand why they did that, but Jesus, mate, there's a lot of people let down by that.
Oh, absolutely, of course, 2 sold-out shows in Melbourne, all the other shows selling really well. A lot of disappointed fans, but I guess
what do you do?
Lots of people respect their decision, and they'll be back. A tour that's done so well pre-sales wise, they're not going to come back. So I guess people have to be patient. Then because a band like that's probably busy touring wise, so they've got to now fit it in within a schedule. They've probably got US tours, European tours, and festivals and whatnot. So they're probably going to have to look at a later point in the year or maybe next year. But you can rest assured they'll be back.
Look, I did reach out to the guys from Life is Noise. I didn't reach out to Dave, but I just said, look, if you need some help over here, from Brisbane, if you need some help over here, look, let's just talk and let's see what we can do, because there's got to be life in the beast yet. Surely to goodness there's plenty enough to go around. I mean, there's certainly enough bands that I'm in touch with that I talk to that would love to come to Australia, would dearly love to come to Australia, but they just don't know the wheres and the hows, effectively, of how to get in touch with people and make it happen. So, yeah, look, it was just a thought that I had to reach out to them just to say, look, I've probably got the time on my hands now. As I said, I've taken time out of my career at Telstra just to see if I can make this whole music thing happen, because I'm also a musician and I perform in covers bands, though, because at the end of the day, you've got to have wedge coming in to pay for bread on the table. But, mate, yeah, it's an interesting conundrum to be in, really, isn't it? Is the brand totally burnt? Is it better off just to start all over again? You know, but I digress. That's life.
It is, yes.
Yeah. Mate, that concludes the interview.
My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and you are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. That was my discussion with Dicey, the brains behind Soundworks Touring, and he's also a member of an excellent band called Claim the Throne. Thank you so much for listening.